everybody, today we are going to be reviewing Lana Del Rey's newest album, Norman Effing Rockwell. I refuse to say the second word in the album title because my subscribers are a bunch of fucking children and they can't handle the F word. So for real, folks, this is a, I wasn't really expecting to review this or give this album much thought, given that it's, pop, Lana Del Rey's pop, and I don't give a shit about Lana Del Rey or pop or whatever. But, I listened to this album and actually was full of really interesting things that are definitely worth talking about. We gotta talk about this album for sure. So let's start by taking a look at the freaking album cover. Well, this is an ugly album artwork, not really much to say about it, kind of weird looking, kind of stupid looking, but frankly, I like it. I do have an affinity for weird looking album artwork, and this is certainly weird looking, so, I like this album artwork. Not much to say about that. Let's just get right into the freaking music. Okay, so what really compelled me about this album so much that made me feel like I had to review it, had to, give some praise to it, even though it's Lana Del Rey, pop stuff that I'm not normally crazy about, is the fact that it blends together so many different ingredients, so many different influences, in really clever ways that I really haven't heard been done before. So, like, in the first three tracks, we got the Norman Effing Rockwell, we've got Mariner's Apartment Complex, and we've got Venice Beach. Within these three songs, I'm hearing influences from like art pop, singer-songwriter, in the same vein as Cat Power with fantastic production. In Mariner's Apartment Complex, I'm hearing influence from Alanis Morissette with that pop with a lot of attitude, with really playful lyrics, and kind of like an indie, has sort of an indie appeal to it in the production. And then throughout these songs, I'm also hearing some psychedelic guitar that reminds me of freaking krautrock, which is really freaking interesting. Alanis Morissette meets krautrock. That's something I've never heard before, and it sounds freaking fantastic. And in Venice Beach, the 9-minute epic pop song, the best song on this album and one of my favorite songs I've heard all year, we've got some seriously super lush vocals that are chills-inducing. It reminds me of ASMR, and that sounds freaking fantastic. And so it's blending all these different influences together with fucking wonderful lyrics and wonderful vocals that are chills-inducing. It reminds me of Lisa Germano's album Geek the Girl, which is a slowcore album, one of my favorite albums of all time. Very beautiful, and these songs are beautiful in the same way. So we've got, like I've said, I've just named all these wonderful influences, and then as the album moves on, we hear some wonderful trip-hop singles in the same vein as Portishead, which is fantastic. And then as the album moves on, we've got some ballads with piano and vocals only, no percussion. That's a lot of stuff to compact into one album, and it's fucking awesome. So that's fantastic, but it's not a perfect album. I feel like the fantastic blending together, the mixing of all my favorite influences in this album really primarily happened in the first half of the album. That's where we kind of hear the psychedelic elements the most. That's where we hear, I guess the psychedelic elements the most that I like so much. The kind of artsy, the most artsy side of the album, I guess you could say. The second half of the album is more ballad, pop, piano, pop oriented. Just a lot of these songs are literally just Lana Del Rey playing the piano with some percussion, a little less complex, I guess you could say. And these are still very good songs. They're well written, still very beautiful, well produced, but just not as interesting to me as the first half of the album. So that was a little disappointing to hear as the album moved on. It got less interesting to me because I was really excited by the first half, given all the interesting stuff going on. But these are still good songs. It's a little long, this album. It's a little, the ballads get a little redundant. I feel like she could have trimmed some songs from this album, given that the ballad emotion is kind of conveyed plenty throughout this album. It doesn't need to be so much. But you know what? I'm giving this album an 8 out of 10. Please don't shoot me for giving a pop album such a high rating. This is a really interesting album, one of the most interesting albums I've heard all year. Very refreshing album, cool stuff. Not perfect, but lots of cool stuff going on. Thanks so much for freaking watching. You've been watching Punk Revolution Now. Like and subscribe. Punk Revolution Now!